Order the City North Plains Parks and Recreation Board at 6 o'clock. Please
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lori, will you please stand yourself?
Thank you, Chair King, or Chair Camp, sorry, we were just wrong meeting. That's Vice Chair King. Member Bernards, I heard someone just try to join. Member Burns. Here. Member Weber.
Here.
Chair Nunnenkamp.
Here.
Member Silverman. Let's see, she's still adding.
Accepting. That's fine.
Okay. Your ex officio tonight is Counselor Russ Sheldon.
Present.
Thank you. And I don't see Member Bernards or Member Oreo yet.
Thank you. All right, consent agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to read the minutes from February 14th? And the agenda for this evening? And so, look to a motion.
I would make motion minutes be approved.
Yes.
I will second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Public comment. I don't see anyone on Zoom or in the audience for public comment. So let's move on to item 7, unfinished business. So finalize the Bryn Hill subdivision park names for recommendation to the city council. Everyone saw this in the agenda and saw the map that was sent out earlier also a few weeks ago, a week ago. Does anyone have any feedback or comments on the names that we had chosen? Any rethinking things? I'll just start with Don. Do you have any comments
It's
or?
good. That's good with all.
Okay, Patty? Evan?
I see Reynolds is gonna be Reynolds Park, not just Reynolds.
To the Reynolds Linear Park.
Oh, that's two.
Yeah. Kind of right across it, so,
Okay. So the whole thing. can be Reynolds Park.
yes.
Okay, that's the one that I wasn't sure about.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments from there, then?
No, I think everything else looks good.
Okay. Emily, do you have any comments about the park names? Emily? Who was the second person that was on the Zoom?
There's Emily.
Miss Emily, okay.
I do not have any comments, no.
Okay. Russ, did you look them over? Do you have any
I
comments? for
haven't
us?
looked at them yet.
Unfortunately,
Unfortunately, I'm not as prepared tonight as I normally am.
it's okay. If you back up the map there, it has them there. You'll see the park names on the green parts of parks there.
Jackson. Oh, those all look appropriate to me. I'd say they're good choices.
So I guess I'm looking for a consensus to forward on to city council then for the recommendation for the park names. I think we have a full consensus on forwarding this to the city then, so, okay. We have a full consensus then? We'll get to see this pretty soon. then, right?
Yes, I think so.
Here we got them up there. I should have done that before.
Oh, okay.
That's all right. I normally look all this over beforehand, just to be
Yeah.
good.
So I'll make a quick comment.
Yeah.
Lennar and PCD did get back to the names are fine. They had some questions about signage and things like that. Whose responsibility that will be to put up the sign. So I think if the city is going to name them and they maintain them, we'll just provide the signage, and that would be, it can be similar to the other park signage we have around town.
I think what we've talked about in the past too, for other parks, it'd be nice to be able to give some information behind the name of the park. In a little kiosk or something that, or a board, we board's got a plastic piece over it, that little brief description of what.
Sure, I think if the park warrants it, like Purple Park is just kind of Purple Park right now, it needs to be raised, and we'll do some. But one of the things I've been having discussions with, and I want to probably look at the budget later this year, next year, talk with we have a communications person that's good at looking at this stuff, is change all the park signs around town. And then once we do this Jesse Mays Park, yeah, and I've wanted to do it for a while, and then I was driving along Jackson School Road, and they redid that road, and the two parks there, they redid the signs there. They look nice, and it made me jealous. Like, okay, I got to get back on that. So some of our signs are just, they're old and kind of outdated. So I'd like to refresh them and have some uniformity with all of them around town.
Some don't have any.
Yeah, yep. So that'll be, that's going to be a goal for either at the end of this year or 2023, definitely. So, yep. So, but yeah, getting to your point earlier, that's one of the things Laura said, like, it'd be good to know who these parks are named after, so we could provide a little write-up for them about who Melvin and Millie and Jackson and those folks. Yeah.
And do you want to have any kind of reader board, like one of the parks over by me has, current events. There's this thing coming and that thing coming, which is nice if you want to.
In the Central Park?
Pardon?
In the Circle Park?
Yeah.
Yeah, we put that up there. I don't know if we would do it in all 5 parks, but I think probably one of the bigger ones,
Like maybe
Melvin
the main
Park.
Park at Green Hill would be nice to have a.
Yeah,
People will read that.
right, yep. All right, sorry, that was my only interjection.
Do we know when that might go in front of council?
I don't, but I think Lori had it for the first meeting of April.
I did, if you want to do it then. I highlighted it because I wasn't sure how full
Good job.
the April.
Yeah,
1st meeting
we'll do it
was.
in the next few meetings for sure.
It'll be in April,
Yeah.
one of the 2.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, new business. We get to start the review of the Parks Master Plan. So I had Lori just pull out certain pages here to start from to begin with. And this will give us a good point to start from. Andy and I were talking before the meeting here that, once we've gone through the scrub part of this here, that we might look at possibly bringing someone in to help us rewrite this master plan again. But give us an opportunity to go through it first, so they're not going sitting through a lot of this too. We'll have to go through this again with that person, but it gives us an opportunity to talk things over and documents and things before that can even happen. So I think it's going to be time well spent. So we're just going to start off on parks and natural areas, and just start from the very beginning. So the very beginning there, the North Plains Park System is named by Jesse Mays Park, home to multiple special events and community hall. I crossed out the 5 additional parks. I said additional parks provide limited local recreation opportunities for residents near the center of the city, while new parks are planned for newly developed new neighborhoods to the east and to the north. Downtown. I thought that read fine, just not crossing out the 5. Any comments on that? Andy, you step in anytime you want to comment on her. If you think of things that we're missing too, just.
Well, I guess my only comment here, and I can pull this up too, way everyone can see it on the screen, would be, if we need to provide a little background on the current Parks Master Plan or what the goal is here, why you're wanting to tackle it now. That way everyone's on
Well, that's where
Same
the
page.
gold part come in here, the next section here, which is gold tool part, right?
Yeah, so like Don wasn't, you were on the Parks Board, when was this adopted, 2019?
18.
18, okay, yeah, it was pretty early in my time here. And worked with a consultant to kind of lay out implementation plan and importantly, the project plan on it. You know, if you want to spend park capital money, it has to show up in a Parks Master Plan. So the board did that, and there was a community meeting and did some survey work. And talking with Doug, you know, Doug's been on the urban growth boundary project committee. We started talking, and I think they've been talking that part of that work is updating the housing plan. How much housing is the community going to need? Economic opportunities, you know, what's the sort of industrial and commercial landscape? And then part of that is how many acres do you need for parks too, with the size of the community growing. So we're getting an idea of that, and we'll know much better later this year, especially when all the urban growth boundary documentation is handed in. But it could be, you know, 30 acres, it could be 40 acres, whatever we land on it. I think part of the goal for this for Doug was to start thinking about these things as like the next growth iteration of North Plains. Kind of what we have right now in the Parks Master Plan is what we're with in the current boundary.
Yeah.
And this would be a good way to set up for the future. So if we get 25 acres, 40 acres, whatever it is, what do we want that to look like?
I'm really active too in the urban growth discussions too, is parks and trails. So
Yeah.
they've been actively talking about that. So.
Mhm.
Do you each year go over what's happened in the past year and tie it in with the plan?
No, the Parks Master Plan should be reviewed every 5 years.
Right, but how do you know it makes a difference? You know, because to me, that's the key with the document, is it really doing it?
Well, you'll find that out once we start going through this.
But I guess that's my practical question. It seemed like it would make sense once a year to keep reviewing, okay, we were able to do A, B, and C, but D, we said was a big priority and we haven't done it. Maybe next year we should try to.
But there's also a section in here that talks about funding and the years and when certain things should be happening and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's that's in here also. And there's times that we've updated that once or twice already since this.
We did once, but
Once.
yeah, I get what you're saying, Don. I mean, I think that'd be a good practice.
And that was a funding for Jesse Mays, I think, mainly.
It was that and
Like,
Pacific
how do you make
and the
sure it's
Veterans Park
effective?
And what?
and the Veterans Park. We had 3 parks, we kind of all consolidated.
How
there.
do you make sure it's an effective document?
Yeah.
And-
This document, how do you know it's an effective document?
Well, it is a guiding document that
It is a guiding document for builders and stuff too. So,
they have this document.
yes.
I mean,
They always fight by it.
they reference it.
They actually do, they reference it a lot.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's, I'm guessing that's what builders do. They'll look at your parks master plan and say, well, this is the standard that your neighborhood park says, or this and that. And that's another key. They really have, yeah. And I think that's another one of the key things to, you know, to get right before we get to the next phase of building in North Plains. So I hear what you're saying, Don, and maybe, you know, it's probably a good practice to do this. We're still in the first quarter of the year. It's a good thing to do in the first quarter is, you know, how did we do here and there, and so we keep things on task. Yeah.
Funding can be an issue sometimes too, because we earmark certain types of dollar amounts and stuff too. And you know how things have changed in the last couple of years. I mean, things have got a little crazy. So some of those numbers that are in here right now, I think for future, probably aren't very good numbers anymore.
But the thing that's also good is the projects that are in this master plan are also in the city's capital improvement plan. So, and those have more, we kind of escalated some of those costs to be more, because like, yeah, this from 4 years ago, some of these things are way out of date. So, yeah. All right.
Okay, so let's go to what, 2.1 up there. this is one of the things that I have a hard time with, and Andy, maybe you can help me through this, because the level of service gets called out in here. So there's a minimum level of service that the state specifies. But the builders always like to go to that minimum level of service number, which is totally not appropriate. I mean, if you look at what it says right there, it's 6.25 acres per 100 residents.
1,000.
Or 1,000, I'm sorry. But still, I mean, it's just, doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, and they try and dial that number and say, hey, we already met that within the boundary, so we really don't need to do anything, but that's not true. Because we've re-identified as our developments as 400 square foot per rooftop. That's what's been identified right now, which doesn't meet up to this. This is more of a minimum requirement. And if we want to specify a minimum requirement in the documentation at the end of this Parks Master Plan, I think it's a good place to put it. I guess you always have to have some type of reference to that minimum level of service somewhere.
So how many acres was Bryn Hill required?
I'd have to add it up. I don't know what it is right now.
That was, I presume they were given an acreage, is that how that works?
Yes.
Yeah, because we had the rooftop count and we just
So it's
multiplied
based, is that based on
So,
rooftops or
rooftop.
not 1,000 people?
No,
so they're doing 5.16 acres. That's, yeah, that's what's here in the,
So if you said they're gonna build 500 rooftops and 2 per house, that's 1,000 people. So they're doing 5 acres.
400 square foot per rooftop.
yeah, this was a different, that development had a different criteria in the conditions of approval in the NC zone. Yeah, it's a zoning,
Yeah,
kind of a zoning quirk.
and that's in
Yeah.
part of our code now too,
Mhm,
on future development also.
mhm.
We're actually bringing it out of the NC zone, we're bringing it into just development, aren't we? And
Yeah.
So, and we'll see how we did with Bryn Hill, and we'll talk about that again in planning for our code, that, you know, how did that work out with that 400 per rooftop? Was it enough? Was it too much? Was it, you know, how did we do? So,
Well, it would be hard, isn't that 500 units they're putting in?
but we don't know what it looks like until things,
Pardon?
we don't,
We don't know there's 500 houses.
yeah, we know that. What does that look like when we're done? Did it serve properly? Did we need more? Did we need less? You know, that's what I'm saying, was the 400 appropriate? You know, we're going sometimes by other cities and stuff too, and what they've done. So we learn from neighboring cities also. Okay, so on the 2.1, I just scratched out the first part, I think, kept develop 4 parks, community neighborhood and mini parks. And then state minimum, that we'll put that as a reference point. There's a reference section in the back of the parks.
Would the recommendation be to raise?
Is that
So what would the recommendation be to raise the minimum for?
for state level? So LOS is a minimum standard for the state. And that's something you would want to call out of that minimum that the state called out. But I don't think you want it to be right from your needs. And I think our code really needs to drive the rooftop square footage, don't we, Andy? Or we want to drive it here also.
Well, see, this was part of the email I sent to you, Doug. I am no expert in this. This is where
Oh,
a parks
I'm
consultant or a landscape architect could do. I don't know which is better, if it's level of service per residence or per rooftop, you know, or population or rooftop. I'm sure people have much smarter than me when it comes to park services have informed opinions, but
I just,
yeah.
do we document it here or do we do it in our code planning though? That was my main question. I mean, reference it here, maybe reference for code for development.
I'm trying to think. It's either in the development standards or it could be in the development, the standards are outside of the code. Or the development, I don't know. I mean, I think it's just important at least to have it in a plan, and that's a reference.
Question, do we reference that, or do we try and document it a second time here? We're gonna have things that start mismatching each other then, like we kind of do right now, actually.
If this is something the planning commission is going to go through and put it in the development code, then the two can match. We can have the Parks Master Plan amended to do that.
Okay.
But the good thing is, like we were saying earlier, there's a little time to do that because after Bryn Hill is built, there's no more building in the city of North Lanes until the boundary expands. So these things will match. They can go together. Yeah.
2.2, strive to provide, I put a well-distributed network of parks and trails, and I scratched the last sentence there. Last sentence used to say it's such that all city residents live within 1/2 mile of a developed park. I didn't think that fit real well. I mean, 1/2 mile in North Plains. Especially when you look at what Bryn Hill is right now. I mean, there's parks within 3 blocks of it.
Within feet.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So, I left 2.3 alone. But if anyone, please step in if you guys would like to see things added or removed. I mean, I just kind of printed this out and just started putting my notes down of what I thought they have to stay or go. So 2.3 I left alone. I thought it really fit well already. And 2.4 I removed the level of service. First sentence there. So identify and prioritize land for in the park system based on their potential contribution to service currently unserved residents, opportunities to improve connectivity and provide enhanced recreational opportunities for residents. And 2.5 I left alone. And this is kind of what we've been talking about here in 2.6 then. Talk more about grants and funding opportunities also. So that's a lot of what, having your Parks Master Plan in place also. It documents what we're looking at for futures and updates and stuff. And that's something that people that are looking to write grants or fund things can look to this document. A lot of times the Friends of Parks, or what's it called, the fundraiser for Parks.
Parks Foundation.
Parks Foundation. They're constantly asking or looking for things like this to write grants. If they find a grant, it fits within what we're looking for our needs for the parks. Goal number 3, natural areas. Any input or feedback on natural areas? Got another question for you, Andy. What did we ever get all that land back there off of Mackay Creek donated? The builders were going to donate some of that land as some floodplain, and you're shaking your head. Is that done finally, or is it?
Oh, I think it's been done for years.
Oh, has it?
Yeah, the north section. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, that tract was donated back when Kimmer Meadows 2 was done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I am not, it's a pretty flooded out area and 2 trees have fallen on homes in that, which made the city responsible for it. So I'm not sure if I did it over again, if I would accept the donation, but it's not a great buildable area back there. It's kind of rough.
The houses,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think that'll be pretty tough
Okay.
to do.
What lag are we talking about?
It's
It-
on the west side of Cape Creek, starting from like West Union Road, heading south.
So if you're at the bridge, basically kind of south of there.
Well, that's where you made that path for a while that some of the neighbors commented on. That was next to their backyard. That's the far end of it towards the turtle pond.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
closer north, closer to the, to West Union. Yeah. Yeah, further north.
Yeah, it kind of follows the creek over, so the floodplain down there, that's all built.
Yeah, I'm surprised when I go down by there how much it floods.
Goal number 4, design, development, and management. Development and management. Anyone have any comments on 4.1? No, we're on to development. 4.1. I mean, this is a lot of it, this has to do with maintenance and stuff. 4.2. I think we've been good about a lot of this in our redesign of Jesse Mays and stuff too.
And the Veterans Park, but I mean, these are standard. Some of these parks that they definitely would predate some of the more recent ADA standards, but obviously everything that we do now is gonna
Right.
be, accommodate all abilities.
And 4.3. Design standards provide signage, trash cans, tables, benches. And this is mainly in design, development, management, so. I didn't really see anything in here that caught my eye that I think would be needed to add or that maybe weren't appropriate. I thought it all looked pretty good. Our parks of official parks guy that helps us rewrite this might think differently, but we'll find that out when we get there. So, go ahead.
For this one in particular, I think this is where we probably have, for the number 4,
Uh-huh.
I think we'd almost need I assume this is where you would want to put it. You need a 5th one where it say something along the lines of designing parks for, well, trying to think of the correct way to put this. As you know, in the most recent ones we got from the, what's the North Extension? Yeah.
Yeah.
They gave us a lot of smaller parks.
Hmm.
But what we want is a more singular, large park.
Yeah, that's in some of our goals. But there was only 6 points some or 5 point some odd acres that were going to be that development to begin with. So it could never really capture that community part that we wanted out
Yeah,
there.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Well,
if
it's
this-
good if they had one less house or 2 less houses or 3 less houses. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Might not get us to the 20 or 30 acres we really like to have though.
Oh, I didn't know we wanted the forest.
Yes.
But I meant,
Actually, in the classifications here, if you look at community park, it says 5 to 30 acres.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah. And that's what we're looking at next year is the park classifications. So a lot of these classifications, they basically spell out what each class of park should have in it or recommended to have in it. And, one of the things that we've been talking a lot in planning lately has been the lack it's the lack of and properly identifying parking around parks. There's really nothing that nails that down. And so many times, even on the east side, they like to just say that parking was within the community and there's nothing like right around it or. The conversation last week we had in planning commission was, maybe we need to identify so many parking spots within the park, not along the park or beside the park, but within the park. That doesn't take away from the park side itself. So, and that's really ensuring that there's a couple of handicap spots in there for accessibility, and then other people want to use the park also. We have to be careful about not overcoming the whole park with parking. But we need to have some type of dedicated park.
We do, because in a housing development where people are supposed to be parking in their garages, they're not, they're parking on the streets.
On the street. Yeah.
And if you remember when we had the one guy, I don't remember who it was, he was talking about not having parking around the parks over on the other side.
On the east side.
And I said, well, how are we supposed to go there then? That's when he said the comment about, you know, well, it's more for just the neighborhood people.
Right, right. And find
And
parking.
that didn't sit well with me at all, because
No.
I said, if they come to Jesse Mays, they're gonna have a place to park. I'm not going to
Right. Or,
keep them from coming here.
or like when we have concerts up. there and
Right,
stuff, too.
yeah.
I mean, you have to have some type of park.
Absolutely.
I think it has worked out pretty good on that larger part right
Yeah.
there so far, but if you do anything in that oval park or anything there, I don't know what you do. I mean, maybe the schools, the school gates are unlocked or something.
I don't know, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, parking
Probably the
lot.
hardest part is where the water park is, which some people like because it's the only one around. And that's on that tiny little street that's just jammed with cars. Now,
Right.
we walked over there once, which is fine, but if you want to park
But there again, is that really for the residents of North Plains, or is it for that housing development?
It should be for the whole city.
It's
So.
a city park, it's a city park.
Right.
Now, you can, some developments could have a private one. But that's not what that is.
That's not what,
I mean, that's classified a mini park. You know,
is that?
that's classified as a mini
As
park,
a
which,
park, right?
yeah, they're all public parks, but
Mhm.
you know, from a functional standpoint, they're small, you know, kind of like that pocket park in Sunset Ridge.
Yeah, the only reason that one's an issue because it has something nothing else has.
Right,
About the water.
exactly.
Mhm.
Is it the Public Works Department in charge of all the maintenance of the parks? Is that where it falls?
The city parks that we have right now, yes. There's some HOA parks coming up here.
Yeah, the 3 in Sunset Ridge are being maintained by the HOA for now, but the city will take over the large park in 2024.
What's that mean, the city? Is that public works, like
Yes.
place position and then just in person?
Yes, the city.
The city,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they farm out some of them mowing.
Some of them
stuff like
mowing,
that,
yep.
But yeah, it's like maintained by the city.
Mhm.
But that's what I'm just getting at, when you write a document, that's what the road meets the road is, who's the person, like I presume, is there a regular, like I wonder when I walk and jog by the parks, I rarely see a city person come by and inspect the equipment and do stuff, I presume there must be, is there some pattern of
Yeah, there are routine maintenance checks.
they
Yeah.
do it?
Mhm.
And then we're gonna have to figure something out, I know there's something on the new walkway. Will have to be somebody that's gonna have to periodically inspect that.
Mhm.
Okay. But that would be all under
Yeah, it's part of the maintenance
public works.
duties, right?
Okay, excellent.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about that too recently, that, you know, some of the HOA parks, that they're doing their own maintenance and stuff too, so we need to document what those HOA parks are. They're still city parks, but they're maintained by the HOA. So we just need to document them, because this didn't address any of that, and this was written 4 years ago.
The HOA part should be documented in the development agreement. That maintenance.
Right, but we want to describe what that could look like here, right? But yeah, the agreement itself, yeah.
A requirement of what types of parks were required, or when a development came in, depending on its size?
No,
Was that be something we want to maybe think about adding?
Do you mean, give an example?
Like say for the, I'm gonna use the Brent Hill again.
Mhm.
For that size, we say, using our once, either if we modify it or not, our classification of parks,
Mhm.
depending on how much area they're developing, we say that, okay, you have to have this many of this type of park, at least, or and this many of the smaller parks, or you could just do depending on the number of acres that they're developing, we would tell them what type of classification of parks and how many of them you have to have in an area.
We usually let them go off and take a stab at what that development looks like first and where the parks could exist and stuff.
It would be
We-
helpful to
we-
put a
we-
guide in there for them, maybe.
We can say no, or we can tell them to do something different. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all. What they give us initially is not set in stone.
I understand. that. I'm sure that like a guide would help.
I think one of the complicating factors with that one is, so if you look here, the size of a community park, the minimum is 5 acres. The entire development itself is like 5.2 acres of parks. And you want them to be spread out through, that way you don't have one big park and then someone could be walking, at the edges of the development could be walking or driving, but like 3/4 of a mile to get to it. So you want them to be spread out. That way the different housing types can utilize it. So then you start looking at, okay, we're going to be talking about a neighborhood park, which is 1 to 5 acres, or a mini park, which is less than 1 acre. And just is going to be a variety of that. I think maybe having a conversation about, well, the community would definitely love a water park in this one or a dog park in this one. I think those are good conversations to have.
Andy, hello, this is Emily from the computer. I want to push back on that a little bit because I live in Sunset Ridge and my family has to walk half a mile to get to a functional park. And we pass 2 mini parks on the way. And that is true of most of the people that live in my part of the neighborhood. We don't go to the other parks. And so I think that there is room for the discussion to say, like, not every neighborhood, like it's not necessarily more beneficial to have a bunch of little parks because quote unquote, it makes everyone closer. Because if the park is not functional, it's not really functional.
Right, but looking back at what the north side, the Bryn Hill is right now, did you like what you saw there as far as the neighborhood parks that were roughly about 1.5 acres per park and they were spread throughout the development? Or did you want to see smaller parks yet, or just one big park in the middle, or what are you thinking?
Listen, I think what happened with the most recent development hopefully we'll see, but like is a positive development, which is that we had, the parks department was able to inform what some of those smaller parks look like, right? So hopefully those smaller parks will still be functional. I think though that we also need to consider the landscape of the entire city. And if we have a conglomeration of a bunch of little neighborhoods, all with a bunch of little parks, that looks one way. And if we have a bunch of neighborhoods with a bunch of little parks and then a couple neighborhoods with big community parks, that looks another way. And I would prefer the latter.
I don't know how to address this as far as addressing developers. I don't know.
Well, I'll say this in response to Emily. I mean, we're probably not in major disagreement there. I think it's pretty, I definitely get what you're saying there. A small, tiny mini park is not that functional. So
Right.
you want to have, that's why when I was talking a while ago, I had this Bryn Hill map right in front of me and looking at, if you built a 5 acre park during the development, I guess that's fine, but you're going to have a mix of townhomes, large lots, medium lots, small lots, apartments, various family size diversity. So it's good to kind of have a different park sizes to serve all those. And I would prefer we don't have any, tiny mini parks that,
Yeah.
that, you know, no one can barely use. And I think, you know, these are lessons we learn as we all get a little more, get a better idea of what we want, and, you know,
I was looking for an example. Is that kind of what they did at Renco? I was there recently. It seemed like they had a big, huge park kind of in the center.
in the central, that's their central park.
Yeah, and that's kind of what that is, right? That's got a
You
couple
go
acres.
2 blocks away,
Pardon?
and you go 2 blocks away, and there's another park that's probably an acre and a quarter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And
I mean,
it's
that's a
got the
lot of-
playground equipment.
And that makes, there's a lot of density around there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people living around there. But these are good examples.
Yeah.
Good examples to know. I mean, these are
So,
good discussions. to have.
question so like,
You look at the map.
yes, Jackson Park,
Can
Yeah, let me go back up. Sure.
is there going to be play equipment there? What's going to be, I saw the one park, I don't even know which one it is.
I think that's the one that we haven't identified.
There's two yet. It would be Jackson and the Millie.
And the
That's
Millie
right.
Park, we
Yeah.
have not identified what that parcel will be yet,
Oops, sorry.
if I remember right.
This thing's going a little slow.
Yes, that
That's
one's
the one with the
got,
play structure out there.
And that's the one that flooded before?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty misleading.
What misleading? The flooding?
The flooding, yeah, because what they did is they put all the piping in and they capped it off.
I would reserve judgment on these
Yeah.
things at this stage. It's
I
like,
haven't seen it, I know they fixed
I
it.
know, I took pictures of it too.
Oh,
yeah.
I
But
just,
it was fixed to begin with, it's just it wasn't ready to be releasing everything into the system yet. So
okay, so,
that will definitely be taken care of.
okay,
Still
so
fine.
there's play equipment there. Will there be play equipment at Pumpkin Ridge Park and Jackson Park? Or
We don't know what Jackson and Millie Provost Park has in it yet. They'll be coming to us with that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Play equipment here, play, you know, active play stuff all on here. I assume all of them will, unless
Right.
there's a strong push for this should be a dog park or something like that, you know?
Wasn't one of them just for sport?
But.
Yeah, one of
So
these,
area though,
yeah. Is it
Yeah.
this
That's
one?
not having
I
Andy
can't,
look into.
for some reason, I think it
possibly
was
use
that one down there,
for
but
the
I,
time being.
What are the cards again?
Is,
Pink areas are not featured
yeah, this might be
right now.
pickleball.
Yeah,
But
they're-
it's
They're
in the
in the-
land developed, but it's
Yeah.
just not outside.
It's in the UTV, but it's not developable right now, so.
But
Working with there.
to answer your question, Patty, they're all meant to be active parks.
with play equipment and that.
Yeah, I mean, or if not a play equipment, a pickleball court or something,
Oh, okay.
right? Yep.
I didn't know if they were just grassy areas being called park or.
No.
I'd say the biggest grass area will be here, because the north part will be
Equipment.
equipment and all of this will be kind of an open grass space.
That one's all done. The playground's all operable.
Yeah, they taped it off again, though, because people were down there playing on it and wasn't really ready to be played on yet, so.
You
Was that
were?
you, Don?
Just testing us.
Disregard that.
All worked very well.
You know, so talking about park sizes and stuff here too, so I have to look back to Jesse Mays right now and say Jesse Mays is 1.83 acres, I think it is. And we don't call in our classifications here for any of our parks to have a restroom until we get to over the 5-acre park.
That's a mistake.
I think so too. I think that like from 1.5, we should suggest that, you know, that there should be restrooms or something there. I know it's a
So
lot.
there's no restrooms at any of these parks.
There's no restrooms at any of those parks.
Veterans Park has one.
Veteran has a porta potty at it,
Yeah,
but it doesn't have a permanent restroom.
nice.
These are, yes, we
At times.
may need a parks bond if, because things are, they're not cheap to build.
I'm just
If we had a
saying,
restroom at every single
for
park.
people to go
these are-
out and spend
yeah.
time and play, like we finally have a restroom here, which
Mhm.
people have been begging for decades. Which I know they're really grateful to have this.
No, it's good. Well, this makes sense. It's the
How
main
much
community
was this
park.
one?
$150,000.
But we wouldn't be doing some of the things we do to a normal one, like running the electrical.
Electrical and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
So it might, yeah, maybe 125. Still a lot there.
yeah. No, I'm just,
Right. But
just want us to recognize that these
I
are cheap,
wanted to
but
make
yeah.
it as an optional thing for them to think about in these neighborhood parks. You can put it down as an optional thing as a restaurant. And it may be in a bigger development like the Green Hill out here, maybe if we have a big development like that again, maybe we can get one or two of those parks to have restrooms in them.
You know, when you think about it, we've had 2 concerts at that park over there. And of course, the first thing people, the band, started complaining about was, where's the bathroom?
Right.
And they had to go, what was it, 2 blocks?
Luckily, the developer had a
Yes,
porta potty.
yes. The second time we brought one in,
Mhm.
but it is something that we probably should think about if, you know, we're going to use these parks for more than just kids playing, but I mean.
I'd say
if
put
you
them
gotta go
in.
to the bathroom, you don't want to, you know, on the rocks or.
I say, yeah, put it in. That should be a change.
Yeah.
I think you would need, and sometimes it's just the big parks needs one. Green Hill, the big one needs a restroom. And then parents, like when I'm taking my kids, I don't go to that one.
Now, one thing that's nice too about the east side expansion one out there, the bigger park there, is part of what they've always talked about is if they get to develop more residential in an area, that they'll expand that park and make it bigger than what it is right now. Well, that gives us a
That's
prime
good.
opportunity
Yeah,
to say, hey, you need to put a restroom,
Yeah,
you know, so I think that's a great opportunity at time to.
and not just a porta potty, but. bathroom.
Right.
Bathroom.
Anyways, it was just things I want you guys to think about, that I think that in this classification right here is where we need to add this stuff. If we want to see more additional things in the
I
parks.
think that should absolutely be added.
My granddaughter was upset she couldn't be on the grass. I told her I was against the rules. And she said, well, why be on the grass?
I don't see
We
the
have a
problem there.
restroom.
I always went to the bathroom outside, but that was our house.
You're probably a camper. or
I
something,
remember your mother
so.
telling us that.
So under community parks, the only addition I had there was off-street parking. Was there anything else that anyone saw here that they wanted to see added to the community park? Besides off-street parking? I think they covered all the other stuff pretty well,
Yeah.
so. Actually, they have a covered shelter. I don't see a covered shelter there. Maybe we should add covered shelter. Under facilities, where it says restroom, parking, water
Well, they've
fountain.
got picnic areas, so there should be a covered.
You'd think there'd be a shelter, a larger
But we might wanna put that down just to
Let's
make
just
sure.
put a shelter.
Especially
covered
the
shelter.
community or neighborhood.
Even if they're
Smaller in size.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Go down there.
But shelter and then off-street parking, and then down to neighborhood parks. I had added, I scratched out at the very bottom bullet there, I scratched out limited. And it just says facilities, and it says possibly including off-street parking, covered area, so I'll put shelter instead of covered area. And then restrooms. So this is possibility, so it's, you know, things for them to be thinking about what we're gonna want in the parks. So it doesn't demand they have to have it in there, but we as a park board too, we can tell them that we want to see certain things within this park that they come to. So. Okay, next one is mini parks. So mini parks, again, I put, it says no facilities at the very end there. I struck out the no part of it. And I said facilities, off-street parking, picnic tables, shelter, and then the water fountain. I didn't put restrooms in there, so I figured that was a small enough park that that's not something we probably want to ask for in a park like that. It's less than a,
So with Bryn Hill, there was never a conversation about a restroom.
no, there was.
I wonder if it's, maybe it's too late, but now the ground is still dug up. I wonder if you could ever get it to at least
Well,
have the sewer, the water and electrical closer by.
I don't know if we could, because it's
Yeah.
not part of our requirements or even something that we want to even see in our park master plan right now. So, but we can't come in with a parks master plan after it's already, the development is basically set out and you're going to start changing codes on it and stuff at that point.
I was just getting at, if we're gonna, in 5 years, buy a bathroom, I'd rather house dug up, say, pull the sewer and the wire over it, they'll snub it off, and
Well,
I'd rather.
that's gonna be an HOA park out there too. So any development, any updating or anything like that, they're gonna be responsible for.
Well, let's see if the residents complain.
Yeah. It could be that the residents want to see that get added into their park.
Yeah, it's tough to know exactly what they're gonna want. We have to make some assumptions about what we want
Right.
to see and what they'd probably want to see if they're moving here, so.
I mean, any part where the parents walk over and it's a half mile to a mile, it will come up.
I think
Yeah.
we learned some lessons on the east side expansion. And we learned a lot of lessons that we implemented on the north side expansion. And I think, again, we've learned things in the north side expansion that we're gonna change in the future also. So. I mean, we went a lot further in this north side than we ever did on the east side, because we really learned a lot from the east side. So,
Yeah, the east side is pretty much a mess.
yeah.
I mean, what some places do in the short run is, for a high activity like the elementary school in Sunset Ridge brings in a porta potty. I presume they will again this summer, because they've got high usage of soccer and things
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
that's how they do it.
And in
Places
theory, Sunset Ridge, the HOA could pay for one, or whenever. High use season, you could
Yeah.
temporarily, like I presume there's some cost to the veterans one. There has to be servicing, so.
They come out weekly in service, I don't think.
Yeah, it's like $200 a month, something like that.
How much?
200, I think, 200 a month, something like that.
Oh, they service it every week, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
We don't have ours serviced every week because we don't use it every week, but when they do come out, then they charge for it. We just call it a piece.
Oh.
But there's a monthly rental fee too.
Okay, so. And then special use parks. So I added to this. Well, community garden is already down here at the very bottom. So I added community gardens up here. And I added dog parks under special use parks. Was there any, you guys think of any other special use parks that we want to put in that section? You've got things like museums or golf course, sports field complexes.
Yeah, it's probably what a Veterans Memorial Park is.
Yeah, I should put that there too. And we'll document it existing also. But adding that park up above would be good.
I don't know, would pool be considered?
That's special use, yeah, you say pool center.
How big is the Veterans Park?
Third of an acre, something like that. Yeah.
Sounds like special use here has a size requirements. It does include the parking, maybe I should put off-street parking there too. Well, there's no minimum or maximum on these park sizes here. And then the natural areas / parks. Only thing I could think of was a turtle park that we put down in an existing park. I see they have trailheads and stuff like that. I think that's a good idea. And it's got parking, I would say off street again for parking. Uh-huh.
Something maybe to add, I don't know if you want, maybe like. I think the right word again. Not placard, but information booths of what is in that natural area that's.
Is there up there underneath that?
No, I mean, not there, but do we have that?
Documented.
Yeah.
You mean like interpretive signage?
There's historical markers. It says observation and interpretation. So it's here already in that second bullet there.
Yeah, when I read it, my dumb down brain does not correspond to that.
But that's what it is.
Okay.
It's covered there, yeah. And it has.
It's a very
historical-
technical way of saying.
Yeah. It has historical markers too. You know, there's something that I remember talking to Melvin Van Dallen about at the end of, what is it, 311th Street, where it T-bones into North Avenue. Right over there in that field, or maybe it was on this side of North Avenue. He talked about they had a watchtower there during the Second World War, and people would watch for aircraft and stuff coming in. And I don't know how we capture stuff like that in our history or in our parks or. Eventually, there's gonna be people that don't remember that or know those
I
things. that
think
were-
that's in his book.
Is it in his book?
I think so.
Yeah,
You name a street after the name of the tower or something.
right, right.
Let's just leave it on the tower.
We rename the street, yeah,
Mhm.
Tower Street, Watchtower Street, whatever, I don't know what it
Yeah,
is.
I'm gonna ask, I'm sure he'll get the center tomorrow.
Uh-huh,
I'll have to
okay.
ask him about that. He's out of books, so
Oh, is he?
I told him to.
Ask him about that, or ask him if it's in the book or something.
I will.
So, watch. Okay. Inventory of existing parks. I didn't even start going there yet, so I thought, well, let's get this naming taken care of on the current parks here. And we can work on this later. In fact, we need to update the next page too, which is going to be the map with all the current parks and everything in it. So this one can wait a little bit longer, I think. The inventory of existing parks. And then after that, we get into specific parks and their names and what they have in them currently. So the first thing is going to be Jesse Mays here. Jesse Mays has some major updates that we need to make in that, so.
Speaking of that,
Uh-huh.
where are we with?
We're gonna wait till we got to the end of our meeting here to let Andy get things on that. So. But I don't know if we want to go through all these individual parks right now and do updates on them. We need to get new pictures. We need to do a lot of things for updates. And we're gonna have, 5 new parks coming in here too, that we're gonna have to get pictures for and get updates in here for, so.
And obviously, we're just maybe wait till after the renovations start.
I think so. We know pretty much what's gonna be in Jesse Mays, the updates and everything right now. But we don't know what some of those parks on the north side are gonna look like still. We've got 2 of them that we don't know about, so. We can wait on this one if we want to on the on what these parks are, if we want to hold off just a little bit more. The next thing we're going into is condition of existing parks. They're good, they're fair, they're forward, and we have a chart that we have after that, that talks about, you know, the condition of the parks and when, you know, things that they need basically.
Wouldn't it help if we went and looked at some of these parks?
Yeah, we can do that. We can take that. An evening next, maybe next parks meeting, we've got some more daylight stuff these days, so
It's not raining.
maybe as long as it's not raining. Yeah. We'll get you.
We won't know.
Well, you see it better when it's not raining.
We just spend less time looking at it. Anyways, which kind of, I guess, since I kind of killed doing these things right now, that there wasn't much left over here at the end here, then, so. I guess we can talk about condition. So let's go to the part where that condition of existing parks. Is there anything in this wording that we want to modify? I didn't scrub this one myself, so I want to just take a moment and look it over, see if there's things that we'd like to see modified or added or subtracted. We all know about drainage and irrigation in the Pacific Park, right, Andy?
Hey, that part predates me. We're working on it.
Well, yeah, Blake has provided an update on where we're at with that, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's things like that where we document the conditions of existing parks and.
Yeah, I don't think we can really do that until we go and look at them
Take a
and
look
see
at
them
it.
and.
But what about the verbiage? Is there other things you'd like to see in good condition or fair or poor? Things we'd like to see added in here just for conditional stuff? I think
I
the
think we ought to
three.
take this with us
Okay.
and look at each park and rate them. See what they need.
Sure, we can absolutely do that. Is that something that the members would like to do? Like in place of a parks meeting, or do you want to try and get together on the weekend or, you know? Some other evening during the week or something? What are the park board people like to see?
I think going to actually looking at the parks, seeing them for a peak meeting would probably help to actually get.
Do you want to do it in place of the meeting, or do you want to do it besides, you know, on top of
Doesn't
it?
matter to me.
I think it'd be helpful to have the public with us, because they can tell us kind of, here's why it's like this, we've tried to do this or tried to do that, just so we kind of have an understanding of what the process works for the park. You know, like I had asked once, because I was just curious, the fall zone, the bark, how often do you replace it? Right, you rake it every month, or just to understand what the current maintenance cycle is.
And I would say for doing it at the meeting, we could maybe put out I don't know, newsletter that we are going to be doing this on this day, so if people had public comments on the certain parks, they could be there.
I think we're gonna be looking for community input and stuff again here when we get into this. Kind of like we did last time, we had the community, you know, get together and write things they'd like to see, or things they didn't like, or things they needed, or.
Volunteer appreciation.
Right. Definitely need to capture the community's input too. I mean, we don't want to be the only ones kind of directing what's going on. We want their feedback, because they're the ones who use it the most, right? Yeah, I think it's good to get kids feedback. So I think that, you know, once we get through this a little bit and we are looking for ideas to add into this or whatever, or help document what we're doing, I think it's great to have the community, whether it's a ice cream social or what were you suggested there, Patty, that
Volunteer
volunteer
appreciation.
appreciation night, yeah. It's a good place to, you know, collect data.
And the other interesting parks thing, because it's not official, I guess, but like the new elementary school is a huge asset in terms of park. Because after hours and weekends, the public uses it.
Is it open? Do they keep it open?
Yeah, that's part of the rules of whatever you call it. a public school
That's
system.
my neighborhood park. My kids just go and play this. That's what all the
If it's
neighborhood
open, they
kids
get to
do.
use it, But it's not just a given.
It can be like there's a soccer tournament, but you know, the way that taxes work, since the people bought.
I've never seen at least here in Hillsborough or in Oregon area, I've never seen a school playground that's locked or off limits or anything. Maybe during COVID in the early days, that was
The
it.
city will tell you that they will not guarantee it, so.
But I'm just saying, it's a huge asset that's not really on the map.
Right.
I would say the majority of Sunset Ridge goes to the school park on the weekends. Now, sometimes there's a soccer tournament going on, so there's more people there. Like Andy said, it's open, they're really good about that. It's padlocked during the week, so you can't go when the kids are in school. Right. So anyway, that's an extra asset that came online, is that new school. You know, it's pretty unusual to have that field there, the artificial turf field is a huge plus thing.
We were,
Mighty weather.
talked for a long time about trying to get 2 fields in there, but it wasn't in their budget and that's expensive. So we
Did
found
we
out.
the schools in the parks plan or because
No.
they are part of the school?
They maintain it and they update it.
Do we even want to mention, maybe put mention it in them?
There's nothing here. We've talked to the schools quite a bit about this, so we don't want to call them a park or call them I mean, they're there.
Yeah, they're just an additional asset.
Right, right.
Right?
Okay, so as far as your comment, getting public works, that means that we have to do it during the week, during working hours.
Well, unless, I don't know, every now, I don't know the schedule, but you come all the time, but Blake came some of the time to these meetings.
I do end up coming to most of them. Yes, I would love to hire a public or a parks director one of these days. You know, Blake's going to be gone in a month and a half. So I think doing a field trip with you all, whether you have a public works director there or me there, regardless.
I think
Just-
Andy can pretty much answer any questions we've got anyways there. You know the park pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, not as well as Blake, you
Yeah.
know, with this history here, but I mean, from, you know, using some of this criteria or pointing out the deficiencies, or, you know, these were grades assigned a couple of years ago, just go, you know, I feel like this could use work, this needs a different, assignment.
Definitely.
These things they're important because you can use a portion of parks SDCs for sort of minor upgrades, ADA, signage, you know,
Things that.
yeah, just kind of just some O&M stuff. It's the large capital things that are a problem for an existing park. So just pointing some of those things out and we could come up with some sort of work plan over the next, you know, set time period to do this and that. And, you know, like I said earlier, one of the goals would be to have some nice, although signage score is okay there. I think we could get ones across the board with some nice uniform signage and.
I mean, there's not, my only thing is I jog by all of them, walk by them a couple times a week, and you can kind of make a circle by all the parks. And to be honest, there's not that much to see, though. Lamorden, or if I'm saying that right, has the water park, and then a couple of those just have grass, right? Franklin and the Louis Wentz is just grass, right? So they're just.
Yeah, they're passive parks, yeah.
And then the purple park is flooded, so that has to be fixed, so there's not much to do with that one, and then Jesse May is outside. So, and then the veterans is a pretty simple one that I think most people have already seen, so I wouldn't mind doing it, there's not really that much to see in those.
So do you want to try and do it on a weekend or after hours, or when do we do something like this? I'm gonna look to Andy then, so. I mean, are you okay doing it with us, or we want to try and get Blake involved, or what?
Yeah, if you want to do it, why don't we just do it in the place of a parks meeting? Yeah.
We can do that next month. We don't know if it'll be raining or not, but. And what does that do? What is our daylight? Our daylight looks really good, doesn't it? These days.
So you're gonna pick up in 30 minutes.
The two main parks are being redone, right? So it would be more of a discussion of what you're gonna do, because this one's all being redone, which is the main one.
But we can talk about our walking trails and stuff too that we have going on. So where do we improve there? Where do we have issues with that?
Okay.
You know,
Especially the connecting between them.
or it could be, you know, some of the things have been brought up with the new trail going out to the east side expansion that needs some improvement and stuff. But we need to talk to them. We can all look at it and see what's going on, see if we want improvements.
Yeah, though, I presume it'll be done by next time. It's almost done now. The walking trail, Andy, should be done. That down below part looks like.
Yeah, they're just putting rails on, handrails. Mhm.
Yeah, that's nice that people haven't seen it.
Okay, well, let's just plan on our next Parks Board meeting. We'll have to probably drive around to some of the areas, but we can definitely do that. You good with that, Andy?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what value I can bring to this. I'm almost wondering if we should get our city engineer, because if you're gonna have questions about Purple Park, you know, they have a much better idea about that. Yeah, Pacific Purple Park. Pacific Purple.
It's not purple back in here again, but it's supposed to be just.
Pacific Park? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's on there. Yeah,
So
I just, like I've said before, I just don't have the landscape architecture technical background of a parks person that I can give you an idea of like, well, maybe what maintenance would be. But yeah, I'm happy to tag along. Yeah, but I mean, so I'll give you an example though. Here's a park, the biggest one in the city, 3 acres, Burn Galloway Park. That's basically going to be inaccessible. Once that, because that lot's going to develop, you know, probably within the next year and a half.
Land that you can't do anything on anyways.
Yeah.
So,
So as we're cleaning things up, it's sort of like,
and
you know,
part
it's a
that
piece of
park
city
is
property, but
the Veterans Park now. So part
the
of that is.
back portion, yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing really to. You talk about where the trails maybe gonna connect on the backside of that or something that.
Yeah.
I don't know, when was that supposed to be starting up there too?
The boardwalk back there?
The Ghost Creek Trail, is that what it's called?
Yep. That's on our CIP to have that done 2023. Yep, so we'll finish up all the design of that next year and
Oh, okay.
probably, hopefully put it out to bid by sometime at the end of this
I
year.
don't know if
Yep.
everyone knows where that really is gonna be at or what that would look like down there even, so, I mean.
Starts at Veterans Park.
Yeah, it would be at start or end, but it would go west through sort of the wetland area as a boardwalk, and it would connect over to 314, which that's a street that goes all the way to the end to basically to Highway 26.
That's the dead end one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just another walking avenue for people over there. So yeah, if you do it just in lieu of this meeting in April, yeah, I can tag along and tell you what I know.
That's what April 11th. Let's do that. Okay, so I think we're at the end of this evening. So what is next on our? So board and staff comments, let's hit the board up first here. Don? Good comments? Patty?
No, I'm good.
Emily?
I have a question that's not entirely parks related. Well, it's entirely not parks related. About the commercial development on Commercial Street. I think I've heard there's going to be like a Taco Bell or something built there.
That's
And
on Glencoe.
Glencoe.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. I'm just curious, like, what is is there like, who gets to decide what gets built or who, what franchises or what businesses get to own or lease those commercial areas? Is there any community input? I know a lot of people that I spoke to were really disheartened to know that, they're finally sort of building something commercial here and it's just another fast food joint. So I'm just curious if what the process is for that.
I'm happy to take this. Well, thanks for the question, Emily. Typically, if it's a privately owned development, unless there's something strictly in your code, which some cities do, but sometimes that's kind of a tough tightrope, legally speaking, to restrict what can go on a private development as long as it meets the existing code. It's tough to really dictate that. So yeah, there was a lot of conversation around that when that development was into the planning commission for approval, but that's slated to be a Taco Bell on the front and then two sort of office buildings behind it with space for, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 businesses there. So on the counterpoint, I guess related to that though, on the corner of that kitty corner to where that would be in the northeast corner of Pacific and Glencoe, that's kind of the thrust of why the city purchased that 5 acres. So we could really plan and see the development that we want on that property, which is a grocery store, it's a hardware store, the Public Coast Brewery, a wine collective, outdoor food carts, some other retail. So we could play a big role in what that would be. So yeah, there may be a Taco Bell right there, but across the street, it's something that is a little bit more of what the community may want, because we had a pretty good idea of what that property might have developed as and been sold as, and we kind of stepped in. So we're going through the process right now to develop that one differently. But that's kind of the biggest tool is you purchase the property and hold it,
Right.
and to a developer with certain restrictions on it. But I think we won't be able to stop all sort of fast food franchise or things like that.
Oh, no, for sure. And I didn't intend to, we don't need to stop it. I was just, was not aware of the context of sort of who owned the land, if it was private or public or whatever.
Yeah.
I think I saw there was a lot of
the
feedback,
city did not do
I
that.
heard.
It's not something the city solicited for. It's just
Yeah.
Private
Right.
property, commercially zoned, near the highway. And
In our code and stuff
Yeah.
too, we list certain types of industrial, commercial land and what's permitted in those and what's outright permitted and what has to be, what do I want to say?
conditional, yeah.
Condition.
Conditional.
Yeah.
So there's things that are just outright permitted, so that, like Andy said, we don't have sometimes a lot of choices in some of that when it's privately developed land and stuff also.
I always wonder how Cannon Beach did it the way they did it. If you go to Cannon Beach, as far as I can tell, there's nothing like a Taco Bell or a McDonald's. It's totally,
It would have been in their code, how they wrote their code.
yeah, so that's kind of the extreme example. If we wanted to see an example of that.
Possibly. They also don't have a gas station either. So I sometimes it depends on your access in and out. Yeah, there's no gas stations in Cannon
You're
Beach.
in the RV place, where you gotta go.
Yeah, you gotta go up the road, up 101.
Yeah.
I think putting a fast food place, which is heavily dependent on drive-through in that nightmare, that's tough to get in at Cannon Beach, that may determine what, if anything. But I'd be interested in looking at their code to see if they have any sort of restriction
I'm
on
not
it.
saying
Yeah.
it's good or bad, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
when you go there.
Well, you just made me think, should we look at it? I don't know. Because even a coffee shop now, Starbucks won't locate somewhere if they can't have a drive-through, and that's all kind of the business model now. And this was before COVID. It's
But looking at some of Cannon Beach's code might help. And I know you guys are looking at your downtown development right now. Maybe we use
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks,
Okay.
Emily.
Okay, Evan.
Okay, Plan approached me yesterday with a idea that I thought maybe just spill over and think about, don't have to decide on it right away, but you know, the Adopt a Road program? How people adopt the road and then they might have their family names on the sign on the road. Well, the idea was to do that for like the parks and trails though. To increase community involvement.
Nice.
Christmas,
Nice.
play the fields.
I know we don't have that much of a problem right now, but with the new development coming in and increasing the trails, I thought maybe when you mentioned it, might be something you might want to think about. Just like, so, I know there's a lot of people that just go and walk themselves. They want to be involved in it, maybe they could have the city maybe supply to them garbage bags, pick up the garbage. And maybe we could give them a plaque on like the trailhead, put their names on it for all those involved or at the parks themselves,
Adopt a trail or a park or something like that.
or at least a
Yeah.
section of the trail.
Yeah, I've thought about that for a few years because Hillsborough does that.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, you'll see signage at certain parks and it'll be like this park maintained by such and such corporation. Which is, you know, exactly, when Intel says, hey, you get 8 hours, go out and help, you know, clean up this park, that's good.
Yeah.
So I've had a recent meetings with a couple different companies in town. They want to be more involved with the community. So that's a good idea. And specifically in parks. So that's a good thing to just say, hey, you know, once a year, like, you know, community, you know, company cleanup day,
Trails,
we'll give you some rec.
they get used and stuff.
How about you build
Yeah.
a restaurant?
Yeah, as far as I thought, it's just, we might need it more on the trails right now than we do the parks, because the park situation, we're probably good on that.
Our trade, I kind of like that idea too. I think it's a good way to get the community or businesses involved in the community. And it helps our parks and trails a lot. I think it's a great idea. Yeah, thanks. Okay, staff comments.
Yeah, I guess the only one would be Jesse Mays. I think we kind of got the electrical questions and the situations sorted out there.
Oh, okay. For
Yeah,
the final.
yeah,
Has it
kind of
gone-
getting on that final piece for the Garlic Fest, basically. And so we just went through, Troy just sent me the final plan set last week. All the bids and specifications are with the engineer right now. So we're hoping to have that ready to bid by the end of the month. Obviously, so one of the things we may be doing is the city just orders the play equipment. And we could do that instead of having the contractor do that. They are, you know, they have a markup. But the thing is, with all the kind of the supply chain things now, that's one of the big pieces that is just taking forever just to get play equipment. So we might do it before we even bid, and then the city has it, we hold on to it, and then it's just in the contract that they're being contractor installs it. Yeah, exactly. It's one part inflation, one part the timing issue. So that's something we're looking at. And we did that with the boardwalk, actually on the trail over there. City purchased it, contractor installed it. So that's one of the things we're looking to do, but definitely in the bid, you know, we're going to be cognizant of August gets here before you know it. So we'll have a stopping point, you know, like July 1st. If we can't get, you know, if the work can't be done, we got to find a stopping point that makes it safe, accessible. Or, I mean, we'll probably even make it June 15th. You know, this is a benchmark, you know, point. We'll see what work's done then. So that's where we are. The hardest part's just going to be kind of when we bid it out, like what's going to be the good place to stop, or what's the good phase to stop.
Right.
If it's going to be a conflict with the festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We might be able to go in there and tear all
Yeah.
Drainage and-
Yeah, because exactly, because of the drainage, it's all gonna be detained on site. You can't really do one part than the other at all. It's gonna have to come
Right,
up
so
more or
it's
less.
all-
Yeah, but like, doing the parking lot, that can be done at the end. Fencing and lighting, but all these things are gonna be needed for the garlic fest, and
Right.
so.
I guess we'll see when we actually get this back and when timing can even really happen.
Yeah, I mean, if we start getting bids and the contractor says, it's a 20-week waiting time for these infiltration vaults, we might just say, all right, start date August 15th or something.
Right.
I hate delaying it year after year, but I also don't want to get into the situation of
I know.
we get to July and
I hate to kill a park for a whole summer. and stuff, too.
Yeah. I know.
It's the one big one that we have. and
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I understand.
Yeah.
Is there any backup plan if you had to hold it somewhere else? There's no alternative site.
No,
Okay,
you asked me.
I mean, because from construction, they're so unreliable. It's just, they say next week, but it's
That's
never
what we've
next
been worried
week.
about the whole time is the timing.
I think that, I don't know what the city can do to kind of hold their feet to the fire once we do get started on it, though, about making sure it's done at a certain time. So there's-
We can. I mean, most contracts are going to have some sort of liquidated damages in there. If you don't complete by X date, you're going to have some damages to pay. But does that fix the situation of the festival?
Not this year.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that if it starts on August 15th, that they've got
Right.
fall, winter, and
Yeah.
boy, early spring, you better be probably wrapped
Yeah.
things up pretty quick.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
That's out of my thought.
Mhm.
Anything else, Andy?
Um,
Purple Park is still under.
It's
Water.
doing the wetland delineation on that right
Yeah.
now. But I think, like I've said before, we don't have a big budget for that park. Most of the capital budget's going to Jesse Mays and
Is that a lot in the grant right now too, though, that Jesse made?
for Jesse Mays, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we could have some money for the Pacific Park, though, right?
Yeah, there's laws you have to comply with for spending SDCs. Yeah,
But since it's
but getting the grant for Jesse Mays has helped a lot. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I imagine, would you want to reuse that play equipment at Purple Park?
No.
Pacific
It's
Park?
supposed to do.
Yeah.
Anyway. it's-
Pacific Park, right. So that's,
it's a good place.
play equipment, that's 75 grand right there,
Right.
And depending on what else, we want on it, but we'll see. We got to get through the wetland. That's,
Right, what can we really do with it to begin with?
yeah, that's a CWS requirement. Once you do that, shoot, they'll knock out the design quick. We just got to get that final data but before the summer, we'll know what that'll look like. Shoot, could even be that one happens before Jesse Mays, depending on
Yeah,
how
that's
things
true.
play out. So,
Yeah. Okay.
I had some neighborhood people asking where they could kayak, so maybe it'd be.
Did you say
cheaper
for the Pacific Park?
Just leave it flooded and just use it as a kayak.
All right.
do they know about the Tualatin though?
That'd be-
Yeah, you can kayak on the Tualatin. Mhm. Yeah, put in over at like Rude Bridge or,
It's a good place. to put it.
yeah,
All right. Is that it,
that's
Andy?
it.
All right. How about you, Russ? Anything from city council?
No, not that I can think of. I think as far as where you're at right now, I think you're in a good place. Getting a good inventory of the parks, defining the parks. And then getting site visits and the condition of the parks probably should be reviewed by somebody annually, at least from a plan standpoint. And then the public works director would be ultimately responsible for making sure that those the maintenance activities occur on a regular basis. And I think as far as the Parks Board goes, no, I think the input to me, at least from my feeling and probably the rest of the council is, yeah, we're looking for your recommendations. So you know, that's the working aspect of the committee is to do all of the legwork so that we don't have to do that. We got enough to do ourselves.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's a good exercise. So, and the timing's probably just right. We're on the verge of an urban growth boundary expansion. It's going to happen probably sometime in a couple of years. I mean, defining these things, it's like it's never been done before. Yeah. And I can't think of anything else. There's nothing that I know of that the council has any burning questions of the Parks Department, but I know that certainly there's been some talk about having some of the boards have participation in like some of the discussions with the Parks Foundation. I know the Parks Foundation might need some direction, and some of that's probably going to have to come from this board. And, you know, they're a separate entity, so reaching out to them is not a bad idea.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so our next meeting will be April the 11th, and we will plan on walking some local area trails and parks, and maybe driving from one area to another if we need to. So let's just plan on doing that. We will, let's just meet here at the summit and that's
It's not a legislative.
and then we can go from there.
Yeah.
Okay,
We could walk, you know, give us a sense of how far we can.
that's great. Okay, we'll close the meeting at 7:31.